Hey guys! So today you and I are going to talk about product managers. So let's get into it. So the question in question was, hi Frederick, do product owners and product managers add value to a software team? In my experience, they do not add too much to a software team. What is your take? Well, I would say that I agree with you depending on the archetype, as I like to call it. So basically, I categorize any type of manager usually into two types of buckets. So you either have the pure manager or you have the hybrid. And depending on how you want to think about a pure manager, usually what I refer to when I say a pure manager is that they don't really have anything else apart from facilitator skills, administrative skills. They, of course, people skills and things like that. But they don't really possess any domain knowledge. They don't really know anything about like the stakeholders or so forth and so forth. They're more or less a facilitator. Then I agree with you. They basically never make any difference, I would say. Again, it depends a little bit on the composition of the software team, because the thing that I need to remind people about, which I'm sorry to say that I have seen this, there are teams, guys, of software developers who don't really have the level of social skills or emotional intelligence that is necessary in order to efficiently run a team. It sounds weird, and maybe it's not. Like, I've always found it to be a little bit weird when I see it, but I have seen teams, guys, where they truly need a Scrum Master, for example. Even though I don't think there is much value in having one, I've seen situations where they have value due to the fact that the people involved, like the software developers, they're really, like, I am guessing they're on the spectrum somewhere, because they simply can't efficiently do basic things, such as make sure that they're on time for meetings, make sure that everybody gets a say, like these basic social things, or facilitate a stand-up without help, in essence, because nobody's accountable, or as I said, they have social skills that are not on par with what I would call a normal person, a normal level. And that's not, I'm not trying to say that that is necessarily bad or anything like that. I'm saying that there are cases I've seen where this makes sense, and the same thing goes for a pure facilitator. The type of manager that I, or product manager or PO or so forth, that I usually see, though, in, not always, but that's the one that actually has value, if you ask me, at the very least, is the hybrid. And so a hybrid is usually an individual who has some background in something else, so they have enough domain knowledge to actually know what's going on in the company, with the stakeholders, with etc. etc. It's the sort of person who actually has some way of providing insight into the development process. Now, what do I mean by insight? Well, I'm glad you asked. Basically, what I mean by insights is that if you have a product manager or a PO who knows how to answer your question, then that is probably one of the most useful people that you can have around. Because the problem is, for software developers, usually not related to the code. Like, if you have an issue with your code or something like that, you might go to a peer or a coworker or something like that. You're not going to go to the manager for that. But let's say that you have an API that you connect to, and let's say that you have a bunch of numbers that are coming back from some field somewhere in the response that you don't really know how to make sense of. Who are you going to ask? You ask, if you're the one working on the story and there's nothing says anything in the documentation, for example, then it might be very tricky for you to figure out what's going on. But if your product manager is doing their job, they should know who, either they know what these things mean because they have taken the time and really done their due diligence to understand the domain, or like the things that you are working with, like how is the business logic actually supposed to work. Because remember, guys, as a software developer, in essence, what your job is to take some problem, doesn't have to be a physical problem, but many times it is a physical problem, like a process or something like that, and convert that into code. And that's what we call business logic. Like the thing that you are writing is the code representation of business logic, but that logic is not just in the code, it actually exists within the process itself. And so if you have a domain expert, we use this as a little bit interchangeable, so just bear with me. A domain expert can be you, like you can be an expert of the code that you're writing, or you really know the logic that it's executing, but the domain expert can also be a doctor. For example, if we're talking about medicine, or ideally your manager, who has taken the time to understand the business requirements and how the business runs, so that they can answer questions related to how the business logic should work at the code level. That is the perfect individual. I would go as far as to say that that is probably the most important person you have in the team. Arguably, it is a person that is, in my opinion at the very least, on par in value to the most experienced or like the best coder that you have, because both of these individuals are necessary. If you lose that domain knowledge, no code can basically be written until you figure out how to do how the logic is supposed to work. And trust me when I say this, guys, it's not fun, and I've seen many unhappy software developers go through that, to sit and like ping people who may know something somewhere in some team, some other department or so forth, and then not get any replies, and like go basically on the hunt for this information yourself. That is no fun, and some software developers plainly refuse to do that. So you basically have to have a domain expert. So if you have a PO who knows their stuff and really knows how to connect with stakeholders, and if, as I said, not know it themselves, know exactly who to talk to, that is a godsend. It is a person that basically enables all other work to happen. If you don't have a person like that, you're basically blocked. So what I want you to take away from this is that I agree, like half and half. I agree with that a pure facilitator, under normal circumstances, and I know that is a vague term, of course, it's basically a pointless person in an average software team if you have at least one or two senior developers with basic like soft skills, basic emotional intelligence, because usually they can't really contribute with other things apart from facilitating meetings and so forth. And the worst ones are the ones who just do exactly that. The good ones usually at the very least have some soft skills to fall back on, so that they can like put you in connections with people or reach out and do these sorts of administrative stuff that in essence most developers could do themselves. It's just that they, in some cases, you deal with people who, let's just say that they have an opinion about how their job should work that may not be so progressive or so helpful in a corporate environment, or like in any environment basically. But the ones that I argue are the truly useful ones is that they have the ones that have some other skill set. Like they're not just facilitating meetings, they're actually making sure that you know who the stakeholders are, they connect with these people, they take the time to actually get to know the domain, so they actually know how features are supposed to work and how the business logic works. They might be business analysts or prior developers who became managers and so forth. They have some secondary thing that they can bring to the table. And as I said, a person like that is invaluable to a software team. I would say that if it's like a team of juniors, then it's like the most important person you can have in the team. Because you can trade a junior very easily, you can switch such a person out, but it's borderline impossible to find people with real domain knowledge. And incidentally, that's what I've been telling you guys about becoming a domain expert within your company. That is one of the things that makes you a highly valuable senior, because the coding is just half the battle, guys. The coding can't even start until you know what the code is supposed to be doing, and that comes from the business usually now. And so basically, if you have a product manager who really knows the business and really knows how to answer your questions about how certain data should work, or calculations or what have you, that is like having a senior software developer who knows everything but doesn't do the coding. So it's a really important person, and I urge every single product manager, every single PO, everywhere out there to make sure that this is who you are, because this is how you become truly valuable to any software team. Have a great day.